Oh, the family grift is rich for Betsy DeVos and Erik Prince. Have you guys heard about this shit? Erik Prince is offering to evacuate people from Afghanistan for the low, low price of $6,500 a seat. $6,500 a seat to evacuate American citizens and SIVs out of Afghanistan. Are you fucking kidding me? This guy is the biggest fucking military grifter on the fucking planet. If you guys don't know who Erik Prince is, he's the founder of Blackwater. Blackwater is a military contractor that really fucked up the Iraq war for us, if you go back and look at it. We ended up spending more money on the contractors than we did on life-saving armor for our military vets, or for our people that were in the military. Okay? That's what happens when you have a bunch of private contractors intertwined with the military industrial complex. And he sure did run that grift thick. Listen to this shit. For only $6,500, those trapped in Afghanistan, desperate to flee and hoping to catch a flight from Kabul's Hamid Karzai airport following the Taliban's swift takeover of the country earlier this month, can now reserve a seat on a charter flight operated by military contractor Blackwater. Oh boy, we knew they were going to get their money. The scheme is the brainchild of Blackwater founder and alleged war criminal. I like that. Alleged war criminal. That's great. Because that's what he is. Erik Prince, whose company made billions from government military contracts during the U.S.-led wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And yes, if you look into what he did, and what his contractors did, they broke so many rules in the Geneva Convention, it's not even funny. If they were actually a government entity, they would be in some kind of trouble. But because they were a contractor, somehow they managed to kind of skirt. Funny how money does that, right? Even if one can afford the initial 65. Now I'm getting this from Salon. Even if one can afford the initial $6,500, a steep price in a country where the average worker earns less than $600 a year, it's nearly impossible to gain access to the airport. What the fuck, guys? Are you fucking kidding me? The Taliban slammed airport entry points shut after spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid said the new government is unhappy about the continuing evacuations of Afghans and that the government will not allow that during a press conference yesterday. So even if one could ensure safe passage into the airport, it's dangerous for most to be seen in public. First reported by the Wall Street Journal, Blackwater's offer includes an armored vehicle to ensure safe passage to the airport for an additional unspecified hidden fee. Oh my God. You are so depraved, motherfucker. Jesus Christ. This isn't the first time that Prince has faced public outcry. This is where I wanted to get to with you guys. They're getting into the meat of it. Send it to Mike. He's my mod. In 2012, the Blackwater founder was implicated in a UN report alleging that Prince violated an arms embargo imposed on Somalia during the country's civil war in 1992. Thank you. Appreciate that. Got a like from Ronnie. That's a person I haven't seen in a long time. I hope you're doing well. I do. It's been quite a while. So, an allegation that came to light after journalist Robert Young Pelton sued Prince for allegedly swindling him out of $1 million as part of a separate lawsuit. Prince was again accused of violating a different set of UN arms embargo, this time in Libya. In 2019, Blackwater allegedly supplied a warlord conspiring to overthrow Libya's democratically elected government with weapons and soldiers of fortune in exchange for $80 million. That was reported by the New York Times. During a meeting with Trump administration advisors in 2017, possibly emboldened by his sister Betsy DeVos's appointment as Secretary of Education, and we know how great she's been. Prince suggested that the entire American war effort in Afghanistan be outsourced exclusively to Blackwater. Military-industrial complex shit, man. It's right fucking here. Happens over and over and over again, right? I'm telling you, it's a revolving door. Apparently threatened with a hiatus from constant warfare as time marches toward the end, towards the deadline for U.S. troops to leave Afghanistan on August 31st, a date agreed upon by the Taliban and the Trump administration, Prince has decided to squeeze every last cent from this effort. That's pretty apparent. The U.S., along with coalition partners and NGOs, has so far evacuated 82,300 people. Now, we're up over 111,000 now. So this article is it's about a day old. So we have made a little bit more progress than that. Excuse me. Including 4,500 Americans. Another 19,000 people, mostly Afghan refugees, were evacuated on Tuesday, with planes leaving Kabul every 39 minutes. Wow, they started picking up the pace really, really fast. That's insane. I gotta say, I wasn't really pleased with the original pullout of Afghanistan. I thought that really we should have been concentrated on getting our civilian assets out, our embassy people out first. But the fact that they've kind of turned it around quite a bit, I'm pretty impressed. Now, I will say, Biden warned about a possible terror attack. He warned about it a few days ago. So when that happened this morning, nobody should have been surprised by that. They figured that this might happen. That's why, you started seeing these planes go like this. That's why they commissioned U.S. airlines. On Wednesday, there was still an estimated 1,500 Americans remaining in limbo, and although the State Department is actively communicating with 500 U.S. passport holders, 1,000 do remain unaccounted for. That was according to Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Experts are wary of that Experts are wary that evacuating all U.S. citizens and Afghan allies is possibly going to be complete by the end of August, especially now that efforts face threats. The terror group, they face threats from the terror group ISIS-K. They actually think they were the ones that may have taken out the attack. It actually wasn't the Taliban. It was ISIS-K. So kind of an interesting piece on that. I did see a link here I wanted to look at real quick. This is related to the story. Let's see what we got here. Give me just a second to pull this up.
It's great that the world is concerned about the human rights of people in Afghanistan, but where have you been? Literally, where have you been for the last 20 years? The war on terror has gone on longer than World War I and World War II put together. It has touched 85 countries. It has led to the death of civil liberties within the countries that launched it. This was a war of choice. When the United States announced that they wanted Osama bin Laden, the government in Afghanistan were quite clear. They were willing to provide him to be judged in a court of law. The United States were not even happy for him to go to The Hague. They wanted military action. Did that have something to do with the fact that within George Bush's administration, there were 6 senior executives at Lockheed Martin, a company which has benefited massively from the war on terror? This war, which has lasted 2 decades, has entailed the cost of about $6.4 trillion. The Afghan war has cost not only almost 250,000 lives, but it cost the US government $2.26 trillion. The US spent trillions, and where did it go? It went into the bank accounts of some of the most wealthiest people in the world.
Some people call you the elite. I call you my base.
It went to Dick Cheney's Halliburton. It went to Erik Prince, formerly of Blackwater.
Would you be profiting from the war?
Well, we're not there now, but any vendor that solves that solution, that's capitalism. That's what it's about.
Blackwater killed many civilians in Iraq and were captured on camera doing so. It went into Veritas Capital, the second largest military contractor
they were really bad.
in Iraq. In Afghanistan, it owns
no question about it.
Employees were hiring child prostitutes within Afghanistan. It went to Lockheed Martin, who within days of the announcement of the Afghan war got one of the largest no-bid contracts in US history. This war, as it always is, was a transfer of wealth upwards. Robin Hood in reverse. That money could have been better spent housing people, giving people their own human rights here. Do not allow the war industry to lead you to believe otherwise.
The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security elite.
The Afghan war logs, for which Julian Assange seems to be paying the price with his life today in a cold cell, revealed torture, death squads, rendition, individual killings, group killings.
This is the whole context.
Guys, I think this is really important to understand. You know, I mean, we're in these wars because of the military-industrial complex.
That Donald Rumsfeld spoke about. Another person who has done much to reveal them is Daniel Hale, who showed that 90% of victims of the US drone program were actually innocent bystanders. Daniel Hale has paid the price and will be sent to jail on the charge of espionage. So at a time where we have seen the main patriarchs of the war on terror, George Bush and Tony Blair, relentlessly rehabilitated and in fact oracleized, we simultaneously see those who have revealed the war crimes of these war criminals demonized, imprisoned and ignored.
Oh, hey dude, he doesn't care.
This is how they monsterize the humans and humanize.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
Overall, the war on terror is believed to have caused 37 million refugees. When we look at the war on terror as a force of displacement across the world, the very same governments that are involved in these NATO campaigns are also preventing people seeking asylum in their countries.
We need to ensure that we are protected from a large-scale influx that can have detrimental effects.
35,000 people and over have died trying to get into Europe over the last 30 years. The Afghans that have died following their displacement and attempt to enter the EU include Reza Ibrahimi, a 15-year-old child who died in the camp in Lesbos on the 25th of August. 2019.
What I'm saying, you know, our war efforts are fucking disgusting. It's brutal. It's brutal.
Both died
it's absolutely brutal.
Trying to get into Europe on the 7th of June 2019.
But we paid so much in tax money to these things.
The 18-year-old who took his own life in Geneva in a shelter for unaccompanied minors on the 27th of March 2019. These governments are making it as difficult as physically possible for people from countries like Afghanistan to reach a safe haven. Contrary to this entirely manufactured but seemingly widespread and popular view that actually you help people by invading and bombing them, the truth is you help people by not interfering in their affairs, by learning from history and providing safe passage to asylum. You help people by not haranguing those who rescue people in the sea struggling for life.
Extraordinary morning we're having on the water, Kate. Just take a look.
How many of you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You can see 1, 2, 3,
You're
4,
seeing
5,
the refugees
6, 7,
come in.
8, 9,
And I don't know if you guys
10,
are aware of
men who are on the dinghy.
kind of
Where
what
are you
happened.
from?
I don't know if you guys are aware of what kind of what happened with Trump, but he actually put the halt on. He actually put the halt on getting the refugee status for these people. So I have a feeling that deal he made with the Taliban was specifically that he was going to make it difficult for people to become refugees here or get the refugee status in the U.S. And from the way this guy tells it, it's very plausible. I do want to hop over to another one, though. This is about 11 minutes long. I got to be a little bit careful with copyright, and I certainly don't want to be pirating other people's content. They did hard work on that reporting. I do recommend checking that out. That video is called Low Key on Afghanistan, Good Riddance to the War on Terror. It was linked in the chat by my mod, Mike, so you can scroll up through the chat and look for that if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and move on to this one from Mehdi Hassan, though, as well. I'd like to get, I'd like to get a couple different perspectives. I'm sure Mehdi is pretty much right on as well. That guy is just, he's awesome. I love his journalism. So let's see. Now, this is a long one, guys. I'm not going to watch all this, but he's pretty good at getting it out right up front. So let's see what he has to say.
It may very well be one of the most controversial companies in our country's history.
Blackwater USA has been called the largest private army in the world.
A jury in Washington convicted 4 former Blackwater security guards in the 2007.
My guest tonight is the controversial founder and former CEO of Blackwater, Erik Prince.
You do admit that Blackwater personnel have shot and killed innocent civilians, don't you?
I disagree with that.
Branded a war profiteer and a super mercenary by his critics, Prince's firm made over $1 billion out of the so-called war on terror. It also highlighted the clear danger of using private contractors on the battlefield. And yet now, he's back on the scene, trying to privatize the war in Afghanistan by offering to replace US and NATO troops there with his own private security force. But will handing the war to Prince really help end it?
I'm Mehdi Hassan, and I've come here to the Oxford Union to go head-to-head with Erik Prince, a former Navy SEAL and the founder of Blackwater. I'll challenge him on war crimes in Iraq, his plans for a private army in Afghanistan.
This is about 50 minutes long. Is there a timestamp I should look at, Mike?
Tonight, I'll also be joined by Sean McFate, a former private military contractor, former officer in the US Army, and author of the book The New Rules of War. Gaith Abdul Ahad, an award-winning Guardian journalist from Iraq who's covered conflicts across the Middle East, and Colonel Tim Collins, a former commander in the British Army and founder of New Century, a private military consulting company.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Erik Prince. Erik Prince is currently the Deputy Chairman and Executive Director of Frontier Services Group, a Hong Kong-based security and logistics firm. Thanks.
Yeah, all this stuff.
Erik Prince, thank you for joining me on Head-to-Head. Thanks for having me. You're back in the news with a new plan to privatize, basically, the US-led war in Afghanistan. But you were the founder and CEO of Blackwater, perhaps the world's most notorious private security firm, which during the Iraq war became a byword for violence, corruption, lawlessness, and yet you've never apologized for any of it.
I think that's an unfair characterization. The company did exactly what the U.S. government asked us to do, which was to protect diplomats, Reconstruction officials visiting UN or other congressional delegations. We did more than 100,000 missions. No one under our care was ever killed or injured. And people try to characterize the company as overly aggressive. Less than 0.5% of all those missions resulted in a discharge of a firearm. In an era when you had lots of violence in the capital. I mean, Baghdad really was the center of gravity of the insurgency, and so we had, 41 of our men were lost in action doing that mission. So.
Well, why weren't Americans used? Not just Americans. Why didn't we use our soldiers? Why did we need a private contractor? We have a whole ass fucking military. It's redundancy, you guys. I'm not going to go further into it because it is very, very long. I think it's worth the watch. I love Mehdi Hassan stuff too, so I really, really, really recommend that. Again, that link is also in the chat. If you are just tuning in, or if you've been on for a while and don't know, I am Jason Society. Jason Society, the Bulletproof Toker. I like to do dabs, politics, and news. That's my deal. If you have not smashed that like, follow, or subscribe button, if you could go ahead and do that now for me, I'd really appreciate it. You're helping to grow our cause and grow our community, and we would so appreciate it. And if you do a dab, as it says on the top of the screen, I do dabs for follows. Dabs for follows, brah. All right. Now, as I was saying, this guy's a scumbag. He's bilking Americans and the American government for all it's worth. He has a history of this shit, and the shit gets pretty gnarly, man. Like, I know some of what they're gonna get into. There was a lot of child abuse. There was rapes. There was all sorts of fucked up shit that this guy did. He's bad news. Bad news.